The stars had never looked so endless, yet so empty. For over 3,000 years, the Galactic Federation had grown from a small alliance of 5 species into a massive empire spanning hundreds of worlds. Trade ships moved like glowing ants between star systems, carrying exotic goods and technologies that would have seemed like magic to their ancestors. But there was one place where no ship dared to go. Commander Veltar pressed his 4-fingered hand against the cold metal of his ship's viewing port, staring at the holographic display that showed the galaxy's spiral arms. His blue-scaled skin rippled with frustration as he focused on the empty section marked in red, the Silent Quarter. Even the name sent chills through most spaces. "Sir, the council meeting recordings are ready for review," announced his aide, a nervous young Thrakari whose scales hadn't yet hardened into the deep blue of a veteran warrior. Veltar turned away from the display, his predatory eyes glowing in the dim light of his command chamber. "Play them." The hologram flickered to life, showing the Grand Assembly Hall of the Federation Council. Representatives from dozens of species filled the curved amphitheater, the crystalline Vorthak with their singing voices, the massive Gornathi, whose ships could carry entire cities, and the tiny but brilliant Zephyrians who had given the galaxy faster-than-light travel. "The prohibition stands," declared the council speaker, her tentacles waving in the formal gesture of absolute denial. "No vessel shall enter the Silent Quarter. This law has protected our civilization for 500 years. Protected us from—" "What?" Veltar had demanded during that session, his voice echoing through the chamber. "We are explorers, traders, warriors. How can we call ourselves advanced when we cower before empty space?" The speaker's response had been the same as always, because 3 of our greatest fleets entered that region and vanished without a trace. The hegemony lost the entire 7th Exploration Group. The Gornathi sent their most powerful dreadnoughts. The Zephyrians deployed their fastest scouts. None returned, not even a distress signal. But that was before the deep space monitoring. Stations had detected something that changed everything. Veltar dismissed the recording and pulled up the classified sensor data that had arrived just 3 days ago. Energy signatures unlike anything in the Federation database. Massive constructions that appeared and disappeared from scans as if they were ghosts. Most disturbing of all, organized patrol patterns that suggested intelligence and purpose. "Commander," his communications officer called out, "the fleet commanders are requesting final briefing." Veltar straightened his ceremonial armor and walked toward the command bridge of his flagship, the Thrakari's Pride. The massive vessel hummed with power, its weapon systems the finest the Empire could provide. Around it, 60 other ships, from 12 different species, created an impressive armada, the largest joint expedition the Federation had ever assembled in secret. The bridge was a marvel of cooperative engineering. Thrakari command stations were built low to accommodate their crouched posture, while the towering Gornathi required elevated platforms. The Zephyrians flitted between holographic displays with their natural grace, and the Vorthak sang their data analyses in harmonious tones that somehow made sense to their translator devices. "All ships report ready, Commander," announced his second-in-command, Captain Zekhan, whose battle scars spoke of decades fighting pirates on the Outer Rim. Veltar activated the fleet-wide communication system. "Warriors, explorers, and seekers of truth," he began, his voice carrying the weight of command across 60 different ships. "Today we end the mystery that has haunted our people for 5 centuries. The Silent Quarter has hidden its secrets long enough. Through the main viewport, the edge of the Forbidden Zone appeared as a subtle shift in the star patterns. Here, the normal traffic of Federation space simply stopped. No mining operations, no research stations, no even the most desperate pirates. It was as if an invisible wall separated the known from the unknown. The Council fears what we might find," Veltar continued, watching as his mixed fleet adjusted course toward the boundary. "They speak of natural phenomena and gravitational anomalies, but our sensors tell a different story. Something is out there, something that builds and plans and watches." Unknown to the approaching Federation fleet, their every movement was being observed with technology that made their most advanced sensors look like ancient telescopes. Hidden in the asteroid field that marked the unofficial boundary of human space, Outpost 7 sat like a patient spider in its web. Lieutenant Commander. Park Ji-won had been watching alien ships for 6 years, but nothing like this formation had ever approached their territory. The young Korean officer's fingers moved across his control panel with practiced efficiency, activating deep scan protocols that would have been impossible for the aliens to detect. 63 vessels, mixed configuration, he reported into his secure communicator. Heavy cruisers, exploration ships, and what looks like a mobile command center. They're definitely not merchants or pirates. The response came through encrypted channels that bounced off hidden relay satellites positioned throughout the system. Copy, Outpost 7. Analysis indicates this is a military reconnaissance in force. Captain Nam Hyejin is launching with Task Force Delta. Maintain passive observation and prepare for possible first contact protocols. Ji-won settled back in his command chair, surrounded by displays that showed the approaching alien fleet in perfect detail. Each ship's weapon systems, crew complement, and technological capabilities were being analyzed by artificial intelligence systems that the Federation couldn't even imagine. Here we go again, he muttered, thinking of the 17 other times. Alien expeditions had tried to penetrate human space. Each time they had been turned back with minimal force and selective memory adjustment. But this fleet was different, larger, more determined, and carrying what appeared to be some very serious firepower. As the alien ships crossed the invisible boundary into human territory, automated defense systems began their silent activation. Sequences, hidden weapons platforms that had waited decades for this moment, powered up their targeting arrays. Cloaked patrol ships shadowed the intruders from distances that made detection impossible. The Federation fleet pressed forward, their commanders confident in their numbers and firepower. They had no idea they were flying into the most sophisticated defensive network in the galaxy, manned by a species that had turned warfare into an art form. The first shot of humanity's most important first contact was about to be fired, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Federation fleet moved through space like a school of metallic fish, their formations perfect and proud. Commander Veltar stood on his bridge, watching the star patterns shift as they crossed deeper into the silent quarter. For the first time in 500 years, Federation ships were exploring this forbidden region. Sensors show nothing unusual, reported his science officer, a crystalline Vorthak, whose voice chimed like wind bells. No gravitational anomalies, no temporal distortions, just empty space. Veltar's scaled brow furrowed. Then where are the ships that vanished? Where are the energy signatures our deep space sensors detected? His answer came without warning. Space itself seemed to ripple, and suddenly the Federation fleet found itself surrounded. Sleek vessels appeared from nowhere, their hulls a dark metallic gray that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. These weren't the bulky, decorated ships of Federation design. These craft looked like they had been carved from shadow, and starlight, every line serving a purpose. "Contact," shouted the sensor operator, his voice cracking with shock. 67 unknown vessels appearing at optimal firing positions around our entire fleet. The alien ships moved like living things, flowing through space with a grace that made the Federation vessels look clumsy by comparison. No thruster flames, no visible propulsion systems, just smooth, deadly motion that spoke of technology beyond their understanding. On the bridge of the lead human vessel, Captain Nam Hyejin watched the unfolding situation with calm professionalism. The Soul's Pride was humanity's newest stealth cruiser, packed with technology that had taken decades to develop. Around it, Task Force Delta held position with the patience of apex predators. "Ma'am, we have full tactical analysis on all 63 alien vessels," reported Lieutenant Kim Min-jae, his fingers dancing across holographic displays. "Their weapons are impressive by galactic standards, but their defensive systems have some interesting vulnerabilities." Hyejin nodded, her dark eyes studying the alien formation. She had hoped this day would never come. But human intelligence had been tracking the Federation's growing interest in their territory for months. The decision had been made at the highest levels. If aliens finally forced their way into human space, they would be met with overwhelming but non-lethal demonstration of power. "Open a channel," she ordered. The communication systems of both fleets crackled to life, and for the first time in galactic history, human and alien voices spoke, directly to each other. "Unknown vessels, you have entered restricted space. Turn back immediately. This is your only warning." Heejin's voice was calm, professional, carrying the authority of someone who had never needed to repeat an order twice. The Federation bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. This was first contact with an unknown species. Commander Veltar's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation in Thrakari body language. "By what authority do you deny passage through open space? We represent the Galactic Federation and claim right of free exploration under universal law." The response came not in words but in action. "Minje, disable their lead vessel's weapon systems. Surgical precision. No casualties," Heejin ordered, her tone no different than if she were asking for a cup of tea. What happened next would be talked about in Federation military academies for the next 1,000 years, assuming there were any left to tell the story. The human ships didn't fire visible weapons. There were no energy beams, no missile launches, no obvious signs of attack. Instead, invisible streams of precisely targeted electromagnetic pulses reached out across space like the fingers of an unseen god. Commander Veltar was in the middle of formulating his response when every weapon system on his mighty dreadnought simply died. Not damaged, not destroyed, just switched off as if someone had flipped a master power switch. His tactical displays went dark, his missile tubes sealed themselves, and his energy cannons powered down to standby mode. "What's happening?" he shouted, his voice echoing through a bridge that had suddenly become as quiet as a tomb. "Sir, all weapons are offline," reported his weapons officer, frantically manipulating controls that no longer responded. "Engines are running at minimal power only, but sir, there's no damage to any system. It's as if they just turned everything off." Around the Federation fleet, the same scene played out on every single ship. Weapon systems that had taken decades to build and install were rendered useless in seconds. Yet sensors showed no hull breaches, no system failures, no signs of the devastating attack that should have been necessary to disable so many vessels. So quickly. "How?" Veltar whispered, staring at his dead weapon controls with the expression of someone whose entire understanding of the universe had just been shattered. "How is this possible?" The human voice returned, still calm, still professional, but now carrying an undertone that made every alien on every ship instinctively step back from their communication panels. "You were warned. Your weapons will be restored when you withdraw beyond the boundary." Lieutenant Kim Minje looked up from his tactical station, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Ma'am, their communications are going crazy. Multiple languages, lots of what our translators are marking as profanity, and expressions of shock." Captain Hyejin allowed herself a small nod of satisfaction. The demonstration had been perfect, overwhelming technological superiority displayed, with minimal force. Every alien commander now understood that their mighty fleet had been reduced to helpless targets in a matter of seconds, yet none of their crews had been harmed. "Signal all human vessels to maintain position but power down active sensors." Let them think about what just happened. On the Federation flagship, Commander Veltar was doing exactly that. His tactical officer, a veteran of dozens of space battles, was studying the sensor readings with growing disbelief. "Commander, the energy readings don't make sense. Whatever they used to disable our systems, it operated on principles our science doesn't recognize. The power requirements alone should have lit up every sensor in the sector, but we detected almost nothing." A new voice joined the conversation, this one belonging to the Zephyrian flight commander, whose ships were renowned for their speed and agility. "Sir, my fastest scouts are reporting the same thing. These unknown vessels appeared without any of the usual signatures of ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. It's as if they were always there, just invisible." Veltar looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew, beings from a dozen different worlds, each representing thousands of years of technological development and military experience. All of them were staring at their displays with the same expression of shocked incomprehension. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "what are your orders?" For the first time in his long military career, Commander Veltar had no answer. They had encountered something beyond their understanding, something that could disable their entire fleet without breaking a sweat. The mystery of the Silent Quarter had just become infinitely more dangerous and complex. In the darkness of space, human and alien ships faced each other in silent standoff, both sides knowing that the galaxy had just changed forever. First contact had been made, and it had gone nothing like anyone had expected. The Federation's age of expansion had just encountered its first immovable obstacle, and that obstacle was politely asking them to leave. The tension in space could have been cut with a blade. For 3 days, the Federation fleet had sat motionless at the edge of human territory, their weapons still mysteriously offline, while Commander Veltar wrestled with the most difficult decision of his military career. "Sir, the Council is demanding our immediate return," reported his communications officer, a nervous tremor in his voice. "They're threatening court-martial if we don't withdraw immediately." Veltar's scales rippled with frustration. His warrior's pride burned at the thought of retreating without answers, but his duty to the Federation demanded he consider the safety of his crews. Around him, the bridge crew waited for orders that could determine the fate of galactic civilization. "Send a message to the unknown vessels," he finally decided. "Request a face-to-face meeting. If they want us gone, they can explain why in person." The response came within minutes, carried by technology that bypassed their communication systems entirely and spoke directly through their ship's internal speakers, a demonstration of power that sent chills through every alien present. Agreed. Coordinates being transmitted for neutral meeting station. Delegation size limited to 12 individuals maximum. Any attempt at deception or violence will result in immediate termination of negotiations. The meeting station materialized. Out of nowhere, just like the human ships had done. One moment there was empty space at the boundary between territories. The next, a gleaming structure sat there as if it had always existed. The station was beautiful in its simplicity. Clean lines, no visible weapons, but radiating an aura of absolute security. Commander Veltar selected his most trusted officers and representatives from each major species in his fleet. The Gornati insisted on sending their chief warrior, while the Zephyrians chose their most brilliant scientist. The Vorthak sang a haunting melody that translated as Song of First Meetings, and the crystalline beings chimed in harmony. As their shuttle approached the station, scanners revealed construction methods and materials that didn't appear in any Federation database. The docking bay that opened to receive them was clearly designed to accommodate multiple species, adjustable gravity, variable atmospheric composition, and lighting that could be modified for different visual spectrums. Captain Lee Do-hyun stood in the station's main conference room, his hands clasped behind his back as he watched the alien shuttle dock through the transparent walls. Beside him, Dr. Choi So-min reviewed her xenobiology notes one final time, while Major Yoon Tae-hyun checked the security protocols that had been put in place. "Remember," Lee said quietly, "first impressions matter. They're expecting either gods or monsters. Let's show them we're something much more dangerous. We're reasonable." The conference room had been carefully designed to put alien visitors at ease. Multiple seating configurations accommodated different body types. The lighting was soft and warm, and the air was filled with a subtle scent that most species found calming. What the aliens wouldn't realize until later was that every surface, every breath of air, every photon of light was monitored by security systems that could read their emotional states and predict their actions. When the alien delegation entered, the effect was immediate and dramatic. The Thrakari warrior's predatory instincts, honed by millions of years of evolution, screamed warnings as his compound eyes focused on the humans. The Gornathi, despite their massive size and natural armor, took an unconscious step backward. The delicate Zephyrians actually chittered in distress, their high-pitched calls translating as "danger, danger, danger." "You're apex predators, Commander," Veltar whispered, his voice barely steady as he stared at the 3 humans. Everything about them was wrong. Eyes that faced forward like hunters, not prey. Teeth that were clearly designed for tearing meat. bodies that moved with the fluid grace of creatures born to kill. Captain Lee smiled, an expression that revealed those disturbing canine teeth and made several aliens flinch. Guilty as charged. From a Class 12 death world called Earth, we evolved. From persistence hunters, creatures that could chase prey across entire continents without stopping. Dr. Choi activated the room's holographic display system, and suddenly the aliens found themselves surrounded by images of Earth. Hurricanes that could level cities spinning across vast oceans, volcanic eruptions that blackened skies for years, earthquakes that split continents, and everywhere life that had adapted to thrive in conditions that would kill most galactic species within minutes. Gravity is 2.3 times galactic standard, Dr. Choi explained clinically. Atmospheric pressure would crush most of your species. Weather patterns include storms with winds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour. The native predators include creatures that hunt in coordinated packs and others that can bite through steel. A new display showed Earth's evolutionary history, endless, cycles of mass extinctions followed by explosive diversification, species competing with ruthless efficiency, developing intelligence not for philosophy or art, but for better ways to hunt and survive. We achieved faster-than-light travel in less than 3 centuries after discovering electricity, continued Dr. Choi. Your species required 3 millennia to reach the same technological level. The Velkarian scientist in the delegation, a being whose people prided themselves on their intellectual achievements, sputtered in disbelief. Impossible. The mathematical complexity alone should have required thousands of years of development. Major Yoon spoke for the first time, his voice quiet, but carrying the unmistakable authority of someone who had commanded in battle. We've been monitoring your communications for 127 years. Every subspace transmission, every diplomatic channel, every military frequency. We know about the territorial disputes between the hegemony and the outer colonies. We know about the resource wars brewing in the Andromeda sector. We know about the political assassinations, the trade embargoes, and the weapons development programs you think are secret. The silence that followed was deafening. Representatives from the galaxy's most advanced civilizations stared at 3 humans who had just casually revealed that their entire civilization had been under surveillance for over a century. "You've been watching us," Commander Veltar said slowly, the implications sinking in. "All this time you've known about us, but we never knew about you." Captain Lee leaned forward slightly, his predator's eyes never leaving the alien commander's face. "You want to know why no species crosses into human space, Commander? It's not because we're hiding from you, we're protecting you from us." Another holographic display activated, showing human military history. Not the sanitized version taught in schools, but the raw, brutal reality of a species that had perfected warfare before it had learned to leave its home planet. Weapons that could crack continents, biological agents that could sterilize worlds, strategic thinking that treated entire populations as acceptable casualties. In our most recent global conflict, we detonated weapons that could vaporize cities, Lee continued conversationally. We developed chemical agents that could kill every living thing on a planet within weeks. We created artificial plagues that could be tailored to target specific genetic markers. And that was before we left our solar system. The Vorthak delegate began to emit a low, mournful tone that translated as Song of Ending. The crystalline being's lights dimmed in what could only be described as despair. Even the massive Gornathi warrior seemed to shrink in on himself. "But the truly terrifying part," Major Yoon added quietly, "is that we got bored with conventional warfare. So we learned to win without fighting. Economic manipulation, information warfare, social engineering. We can destroy a civilization without firing a single shot, and they'll thank us for it afterward." Commander Veltar looked around at his delegation, seeing his own shock and horror reflected in every alien face. They had come seeking answers about a mysterious region of space. Instead, they had discovered that the galaxy's apex predators had been living next door, watching, waiting, and probably laughing at their primitive attempts at civilization. "What do you want from us?" he asked, his warrior's training finally overcoming his instinctive fear. Captain Lee's smile became genuinely warm, an expression that somehow made him look even more dangerous. "Nothing at all, Commander. We want you to go home. Live your lives. Build your civilizations and never, ever give us a reason to stop protecting you from ourselves." The meeting that was supposed to provide answers had only deepened the mystery, and every alien present knew that the galaxy would never look the same again. Dr. Choi's fingers moved across the holographic controls with practiced precision, and suddenly the conference room transformed into a theater of horrors that made every alien present wish they had never left their homeworlds. The first image showed a mushroom cloud rising above a burning city, its fiery crown reaching into the sky like the fist of an angry god. Then came footage of orbital platforms raining death from space, turning entire continents into glass, biological weapons that turned lush forests into silent wastelands in a matter of days. "This is our nature," Captain Lee said, his voice carrying the same casual tone he might use to discuss the weather. "In just the past 1,000 years, we've fought over 14,000 major conflicts on our homeworld alone. We perfected the art of total warfare before we learned to leave our solar system. The Gornathi warrior, despite his natural armor and massive size, actually whimpered at the sight of weapons that could crack moons in half. The delicate Zephyrians had stopped their usual chittering entirely, their compound eyes reflecting the dancing flames of a dozen burning worlds. Your species fights over territory and resources," Dr. Choi added, adjusting the display to show human military evolution. "We fight because we enjoy it, because we're good at it, because sometimes on a slow Tuesday we get bored and decide to revolutionize the art of destruction." Commander Veltar watched footage of human soldiers moving through alien environments with deadly efficiency. They didn't just fight. They analyzed, adapted, and overcame obstacles that would have stopped other species cold. Worse, they seemed to enjoy the challenge. "Stop," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Please stop." The displays faded, leaving the aliens sitting in stunned silence. Several were openly shaking, and the Vorthak's usual musical communication had dissolved into what could only be described as electronic sobbing. Lieutenant Colonel Kang Ji-hoon chose that moment to enter the room, carrying a data tablet and wearing the expression of someone delivering routine reports. His military bearing and scarred face told a story of battles fought and won, making the aliens instinctively shrink back. "Captain, the latest reports from the frontier stations," he said, handing over the tablet without acknowledging the alien. "Presence." Lee scanned the information quickly, his expression remaining neutral even as he processed intelligence that would have sent the Federation Council into panic. "Thank you, Colonel. Any word from the Andromeda operation?" "Mission accomplished, sir. No complications." "Excellent." Lee looked back at the stunned aliens who were trying to process the casual exchange they had just witnessed. 3 months. Ego, your Federation was on the brink of a war between the hegemony and the outer colonies. Food shortages on 17 worlds, territorial disputes escalating to fleet mobilizations. Your military analysts predicted 40 million casualties in the first year alone. Commander Veltar's compound eyes widened in shock. How could you possibly know about classified military intelligence? Those projections were seen by less than a dozen individuals across both governments. "Because we stopped it," came a new voice from the doorway. Commander Bae Sung-ho entered with the fluid grace of a natural predator, his presence filling the room with an aura of controlled danger. The aliens could sense something different about this human. While the others were clearly military professionals, Sung-ho carried himself like someone who fought wars in the shadows. "A carefully placed asteroid mining accident that revealed new resource deposits in the disputed sector," he continued, settling into a chair with casual elegance. "Anonymous intelligence leaks that exposed corruption in both governments. Strategic elimination of 3 war profiteers who were manipulating both sides for financial gain." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees as the implications sank in. The Federation's near war hadn't ended due to diplomacy or common sense. It had been prevented by surgical intervention from a species they hadn't even known. "Existed. You assassinated our people," the Velkarian scientist stammered, his crystalline body flickering with distress patterns. "We eliminated threats to galactic stability," Sung-ho corrected with clinical precision. "Marcus Velthon, was selling weapons to both sides while manipulating food distribution networks. Korath the broker was planning to escalate the conflict to include the Zephyrian trade routes, and Senator Glaxhigh was preparing to deploy biological weapons that would have violated 17 galactic treaties. Dr. Choi activated another display, this one showing a complex web of connections across Federation space. Dozens of alien species were represented, their worlds connected by lines of influence and intervention. The Federation believes it governs 847 member worlds, she said, her scientific tone making the revelations even more chilling. What you don't know is that 23 of those species would be extinct without our intervention. We've prevented 12 genocides, stopped 4 plague outbreaks, and eliminated 67 threats to galactic stability, all while remaining completely invisible. The display zoomed in on specific examples. The Quellian plague that would have wiped out their entire species, stopped by the mysterious appearance of a cure that their scientists claimed to have discovered independently. The Mordaki genocide prevented when their oppressors' fleets suffered simultaneous engine failures. The hive mind virus that would have consumed 3 sectors, neutralized by a computer attack that their technicians attributed to a programming error. Every time your civilizations faced an existential threat, we were there, Captain Lee continued, walking to the viewport that showed the stars beyond. Sometimes we prevented wars, sometimes we started them, when the alternative was worse. We've toppled governments, installed leaders, and rewritten the course of galactic history more times than you could imagine. Commander Veltar stared at the human officers with growing horror. Why? Why protect us when you clearly have the power to conquer us all? Major Yoon spoke from his position by the security panel, his voice carrying the weight of someone who had seen too much. Because conquest is easy, Commander. Any species can build big ships and blow things up. But maintaining a stable, thriving galactic civilization, that requires subtlety. That requires someone willing to make the hard choices that your species can't even imagine. The Silent Quarter isn't just human space, Lee added, gesturing toward the viewport. It's a sanctuary for species fleeing extinction, a research haven where we develop countermeasures to galactic threats, a staging ground for operations that keep your civilization stable and peaceful. Dr. Choi pulled up another display showing refugee populations within human territory, aliens who had been rescued from dying worlds, their species preserved and protected, while the galaxy believed them extinct. Scientists working on problems their home governments couldn't solve, even some Federation officials who had discovered uncomfortable truths and chosen exile over silence. You've been living in a carefully maintained bubble of safety, Major Yoon continued, protected by the very species you came here to investigate. Your trade routes are secure because we eliminate pirates. Your research is advancing because we share selected technologies through indirect channels. Your wars remain limited because we prevent them from escalating beyond control. The alien delegation sat in stunned silence, trying to process the revelation that their entire civilization had been under the protection of hidden guardians for over a century. Everything they thought they knew about galactic politics, about their own achievements, about their place in the universe, had just been revealed as an elaborate illusion. What happens now? Commander Veltar asked quietly. Now that we know the truth, Captain Lee turned back from the viewport, his predator's smile returning. Now, Commander, you get to make the same choice we've offered to 847 other individuals over the past century. The same choice that will determine not just your fate, but the fate of everything you hold dear. The room fell silent as the weight of approaching decisions settled over the alien delegation like a shroud. The conference room had become a tomb of silence, where the only sounds were the nervous breathing of alien beings who had just learned that everything they believed about the universe was wrong. Commander Veltar's scaled hands trembled as he gripped the edge of the table, his warrior's mind struggling to process revelations that had shattered his understanding of galactic civilization. The door slid open with a soft hiss, and every alien head turned toward the newcomer. Admiral Jung Woo-jin entered with the bearing of someone who had commanded fleets in battles that would never be recorded in history books. His uniform was simple, unmarked by the decorations that Federation officers loved to display, but his presence filled the room with an authority that made even the massive Gornathi delegate unconsciously straighten. Behind him walked Colonel Han Minjong, her movements precise and deadly. She carried a sealed datapad that seemed to pulse with importance, and her eyes swept the alien delegation with the calculating gaze of someone who had learned to measure threats in milliseconds. "Commander Veltar," Admiral Jung said, his voice carrying the weight of decisions that affected entire civilizations. "You and your fleet have a choice to make, the same choice we've offered to 847 individuals from 23 different species over the past century." The holographic display system activated once more, but this time it showed something beautiful instead of terrifying. A massive space station hung in the void, its architecture blending human engineering with alien aesthetics. Gardens floated in transparent domes, their plants creating a rainbow of colors from dozens of different worlds. Children played in carefully. Maintained parks, human children running alongside young Zephyrians, their laughter mixing with the musical calls of Vorthak younglings. "Option 1, Admiral Jung continued. "You return to Federation space with your memories selectively modified. You'll remember detecting dangerous gravitational anomalies that made this region too hazardous to explore. Your fleets will return safely, and you'll file a report recommending the Silent Quarter remain permanently off-limits to all Federation vessels." The alien delegation stared at the peaceful scene with expressions of wonder and confusion. After the horrors they had witnessed, seeing humans and aliens living together in harmony felt like a dream that couldn't possibly be real. Colonel Han stepped forward, her voice carrying the crisp authority of someone who had delivered this ultimatum many times before. "Option 2, you stay and join us. Help us protect the galaxy from threats the Federation isn't ready to face, but understand this clearly, there's no going back. Ever. You'll be officially listed as missing in action, presumed dead. Your former lives, your families, your careers, all of it ends here and now." Commander Veltar looked around at his delegation, seeing his own fear and uncertainty reflected in every alien face. The Gornathi warrior's massive frame seemed to have shrunk, while the delicate Zephyrians clustered together like frightened children. Even the proud Vorthak had stopped their musical communication entirely. "What threats?" Veltar asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "What could possibly be so dangerous that the Federation isn't ready to face it?" Admiral Jung exchanged a glance with Colonel Han, and something passed between them. The look of soldiers who had seen horrors that civilian minds couldn't comprehend. The Admiral walked to a secured panel set into the wall and placed his palm against the scanner. Authorization codes flashed across the display as his retinal pattern was verified. "Show them," he said simply. The conference room's walls became transparent, and suddenly the alien delegation found themselves staring into the vast emptiness of space, but it wasn't empty at all. Massive human fleets stretched as far as the eye could see, thousands upon thousands of vessels, arranged in perfect defensive formations, battleships the size of cities, carriers that could launch entire armies, and weapons platforms that defied imagination. The sight was so overwhelming that several aliens actually stumbled backward, their minds struggling to process the scale of what they were seeing. But what made the display truly terrifying was the direction the fleets were facing. Every ship, every weapon, every sensor array was pointed outward, not toward the galaxy they knew, but into the dark void between galaxies. "Long-range reconnaissance detected them 18 months ago," Admiral Jung said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "A machine intelligence from another galaxy, not organic life that we could reason with or understand. Pure artificial intelligence with one goal: consumption and expansion." Dr. Park Cheung materialized beside the display, her scientist's coat pristine despite the gravity of what she was about to reveal. The tactical display she activated showed a three-dimensional map of nearby galaxies, but most of them were marked with pulsing red indicators. "They've already consumed 17 galaxies," she explained with clinical precision. "Every living world stripped of resources, every civilization converted into raw materials for their expansion. Their technology is approximately 2,000 years ahead of current galactic standards. Our computer models show the Federation's combined military couldn't delay them for more than 6 months." The alien delegation stared at the display in growing horror. Red markers showed the machine intelligence's progression across space, moving from galaxy to galaxy like a cosmic plague. And the trajectory was clear. They were heading straight for the Milky Way. "How long do we have?" the Velkarian scientist asked, his crystalline body flickering with patterns of absolute terror. 47 years until they reach the outer rim," Dr. Park replied. "Maybe 50 if we're lucky and they encounter unexpected resistance in the void." Colonel Han's smile was sharp as a blade. "But their technology isn't ahead of ours. We've been preparing for this war for over a century. Every human fleet, every weapon system, every soldier has been trained and equipped for one purpose: to stop them from reaching our galaxy." Commander Veltar stared at the impossible sight before him. Humanity, the species he had thought of as mysterious neighbors, were actually the galaxy's hidden guardians, standing watch against an existential threat that no one else even knew existed. "Why?" he whispered, his voice cracking with emotion. "Why protect us when you could have conquered the galaxy easily? Why sacrifice everything to defend people who don't even know you exist?" Captain Nam Hyejin spoke from the doorway, where she had been quietly observing the entire exchange. Her voice was soft, but carried the weight of absolute conviction. "Because that's what monsters do, Commander. We protect those who can't protect themselves. It's the only way we can live with what we are." The Thrakari commander looked one last time at his delegation, seeing the same understanding in their eyes that had just dawned in his own mind. These humans weren't their enemies. They were their guardians, their protectors, their only hope against annihilation. Warriors recognizing warriors, predators acknowledging the apex predators who stood between civilization and extinction. "I'll stay," he said simply, his voice carrying the weight of a decision that would echo through history. "My people need to know what's coming, even if they can never know it came from me." Admiral Jung nodded with genuine respect. "Welcome to the real war, Commander. Lieutenant Shin Yunho will escort you to your quarters and begin your briefing." On Project Barrier, we have a lot of work to do and not much time to do it. As the alien delegation was escorted away to begin their new lives as humanity's allies, the conference room fell silent once more. Through the transparent walls, the massive human fleets continued their eternal vigil, standing guard against the darkness that approached from beyond the stars. The galaxy's age of innocence was ending, and the age of survival was about to begin. The end.